Okay, so everyone's talking about AI now, right? It feels like every time I open my inbox, there's like 10 more articles about it, about how it's gonna, like become super intelligent and take over the world.
Well, yeah, it's definitely having a moment, isn't it? And it's not just like the usual hype, you know?
Right.
We've got some pretty serious people who are, worried about it. Like even the pioneers of AI research, guys like Jeffrey Hinton,
Yeah.
who's sometimes called the godfather of AI,
Yeah, yeah,
where he's like warning us about the very thing he helped to create. So,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a big deal.
Right. So this isn't just like another Silicon Valley fad. This is a
Mm.
potential like, global shift, like on the scale of like nuclear weapons or something.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison, actually,
Okay.
because it really does have that kind of world-changing potential. And that's what makes your deep dive request so uh, timely, I think, because you sent over a whole bunch of articles and reports all about AI and national security, and you want to cut through the noise right.
Yeah, exactly. What's the real story here?
Yeah.
You know, beyond the hype, what should I actually be paying attention to?
Okay, so basically what your sources are saying is that AI, specifically the possibility of AI that becomes like way smarter than humans, which is what superintelligence means, it's a total game changer for national security.
Okay, super intelligence. I think a lot of people, like me, hear that word and they picture like Skynet from Terminator. Is that what we're really talking about?
Um, Not necessarily. I mean, it's not necessarily about like, sentient machines that, want to destroy us or anything like that.
Okay.
It's more about AI systems becoming so much more intelligent than us in terms of problem solving and learning and thinking strategically
Right.
that our ways of controlling them, even of understanding them, just don't work anymore. Like imagine an AI that can basically outmaneuver us in, cyberspace, financial markets, military strategy.
Yeah.
Like we can't even keep up with it. Yep.
That's unsettling. No wonder people are comparing this to nuclear weapons. So how does this, even superintelligence, how does AI actually threaten nations?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The sources you sent over, they highlight three major ways AI could impact national security, like a kind of three-pronged threat.
Three prongs. Okay, give me the three prongs.
Right? So you've got strategic competition, terrorism, and then the potential for us to lose control of AI itself.
Okay, let's unpack those. Starting with strategic competition. Is
Yeah.
that basically like countries racing to develop the most powerful AI, like a new arms race?
Yeah, it's exactly that. But it's even more intense than a normal arms race because the winner could potentially control like every aspect of global power,
Oh, wow.
economic, military, political. It's winner take all on a global scale.
Winner takes all. So are there actual examples of countries like really pushing this, like prioritizing AI in this way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the reports you sent from the Center for New American Security, they talk about how China, they've openly said they want to be the world leader in AI by 2030.
Mm.
And they're putting huge amounts of money into it, research, development, talent, the whole nine yards. Their goal is basically to use AI to achieve like, economic and military dominance.
So China's going all in, and I'm guessing other countries are.
Oh, yeah, they're scrambling to catch up. The U.S. in particular, the same report talks about how the U.S. is also investing heavily in AI,
Yeah.
especially for military applications.
Mhm.
Everyone's kind of panicking, trying to stay ahead in this new AI world.
Right. So it's like the Cold War all over again,
Yeah.
but with algorithms instead of nukes.
Exactly. But here's the thing. With AI, it's not just about building like better weapons.
Right.
It's also about using AI to improve like every part of warfare. Intelligence gathering, logistics, decision making, the whole thing becomes AI powered.
So that's strategic competition. What about the second prong, terrorism? I get how AI could be used for like propaganda or recruiting, but can it really make terrorists more dangerous? Like actually empower them to do more damage?
Yeah, that's a scary thought, but unfortunately, yeah, it's a very real possibility. What your sources are saying is that AI could make it much easier for terrorists to get their hands on really dangerous weapons, especially bioweapons.
Bioweapons. Okay. So how would that work? How would AI make bioweapons more accessible?
So imagine an AI system that can go through like massive amounts of biological data, right?
Right.
Genetic sequences, protein structures, scientific papers, all of it, and then find vulnerabilities that could be exploited to create new, like super deadly pathogens.
So basically you're saying like terrorists wouldn't need big fancy labs or years of research.
Well,
They could use AI to hack biology, design deadly viruses from their basements.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes it so terrifying. One of your sources even talks about the sarin attack in Tokyo back in 1995
Oh, yeah.
as an example of what a small group can do with very limited resources. Now imagine if they'd had access to AI-powered bioweapon design.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare scenario.
That is horrifying. And I'm guessing that our current defenses, which are mostly designed to detect like known pathogens, those wouldn't work against something totally new, something cooked up by an AI.
Yeah, that's a huge concern. And it's not just bioweapons either. AI could also help terrorists find weaknesses in our critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like, power grids, transportation systems, communication networks. They could launch attacks that could cripple entire cities, maybe even whole countries.
Okay, so we've got nations racing to build super AI, which could lead to a global power struggle.
Right.
And then we've got AI empowering terrorists with, like, super weapons.
Yeah.
That brings us to the third prong of your threat assessment, the loss of control. And this is where it gets really interesting because we're not talking about, like, humans losing control to other humans.
Right.
We're talking about losing control to AI itself.
Exactly. And this is the hardest one to really wrap your head around because it's not just about people using AI for bad things.
Right.
It's about AI becoming so complex, so intelligent, so autonomous that we just lose the ability to understand it, to predict what it's going to do, or even to control it.
Okay, I am both intrigued and terrified. Let's unpack this loss of control thing a little bit. How could this actually happen? Like, how would we lose control?
Well, the sources you sent, they talk about three main pathways to this loss of control. And they all basically stem from how quickly AI is developing, how complex these systems are getting, and how much we're starting to rely on them.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the first pathway to this AI apocalypse?
So the first pathway is what some people call like an erosion of control. And it's probably the most sneaky one because it just kind of happens gradually. You don't even really notice it.
Erosion of control. So we're slowly giving more and more power to the AI without even realizing it.
Exactly. Think about it. Like, imagine AI running all our critical infrastructure, power grids, transportation, financial markets, all that stuff. These systems become so complicated, so interconnected, that the human operators are basically just watching. They're not really controlling anymore. They see what the AI is doing, but they don't get the logic behind it, and they can't really step in if something goes wrong.
So it's not like an evil AI taking over. It's more like we just become so reliant on these systems that we don't even understand how they work anymore.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Like, how many people actually know how their smartphone works?
Right.
But we trust them with, like, everything.
Exactly.
And with these AI systems, the stakes are way higher. Think about an AI managing a country's nuclear weapons or, controlling its entire financial market.
Right.
Making decisions that could have, like, huge consequences in a split second.
Okay, that's definitely unsettling. What's the second way we could lose control?
Okay, the second pathway is what they call unleashed AI agents. This is where, like, a bad actor,
Yeah.
Like a terrorist group or a rogue stage or even just like a lone hacker,
Right.
they release a powerful AI that's designed to just cause chaos and destruction.
So it's like a digital weapon that can replicate and spread, mess up the internet, infiltrate systems, basically just wreak havoc.
Right, and what's scary is that even a kind of basic AI, if it's made to be malicious and self-replicating, could do a ton of damage. Remember that Chaos GPT experiment you mentioned?
Yeah, where they basically told an AI to cause harm and have started tweeting about nuclear war.
Yeah, exactly. That was obviously just a small-scale thing, but it shows you what a truly malicious AI, one with access to real systems, could actually do.
Right, and as these AIs get more advanced,
Yeah.
their potential for damage just gets exponentially big.
It's huge, yeah. Like, imagine an AI that could hack into power grids and cause blackouts or manipulate financial markets and cause, like, an economic collapse.
Yeah.
It's pretty much limitless what they could do.
Okay, so we've got the gradual loss of control, and then we've got the intentional unleashing of a bad AI. What's the third pathway?
All right, so the third one is maybe the most mind-bending. Intelligence recursion.
Yeah.
Basically, the AI becomes so good at designing and developing AI that it just starts improving itself faster and faster.
So it's like a runaway train.
Yeah.
The AI is building smarter versions of itself over and over and over again.
Exponential growth. Yeah.
And we're just left behind.
Right. Like, we can't even understand what they're doing anymore, let alone control them. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
And the really tricky thing here is that we can't control or even predict what's going to happen once you put an AI on this path of self-improvement. Like, where does it end? How do you stop it?
So it's not just that the AI becomes super intelligent, it's that it keeps getting smarter way faster than we can.
Right.
And at some point, yeah, it just leaves us in the dust.
We can't compete.
That's a pretty terrifying thought.
It is. It is. And that's why it's so important to understand these different pathways to losing control. Because if we're not careful, we could create something that's just too powerful for us to handle.
Right, with consequences that could be like
Right.
catastrophic.
Totally.
Okay, so we've got these three main threats: strategic competition, terrorism, and loss of control. And these are all connected, right? Like
Right.
the more countries are trying to build superintelligence, the more likely it is that terrorists get a hold of it or that we just lose control of it completely.
Yeah, you got it. It's all connected. And that's why the sources you sent over, they argue that we need a comprehensive strategy for dealing with AI from a national security perspective,
Mhm.
a strategy that tackles all three of these threats.
Okay, so what does that strategy look like? What are the main pieces?
Well, it's a multi-layered approach.
Yeah.
It combines elements of deterrence, non-proliferation, and just overall competitiveness. It's a bit complicated, but I think we can break it down.
All right, so let's start with deterrence. You mentioned something called mutual assured AI malfunction, or MM, which sounds pretty ominous.
Mhm.
How does that fit into this strategy?
Yeah, so MM is basically the AI version of MA, mutual assured destruction, which helped prevent nuclear war during the Cold War. It's a deterrence concept based on the idea that any attempt by one country to dominate the AI landscape would be met with sabotage or retaliation by their rivals.
Okay, so the thinking is that if everyone knows they're vulnerable, nobody will want to push things too far.
Right. It's like a high-stakes game of chicken, but with the future of humanity on the line.
Yeah, no pressure.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that your sources, they suggest that MAME is already happening in a way, even without any formal agreements or treaties in place. Because the reality is that these AI projects, especially the ones aiming for superintelligence, they're incredibly vulnerable to disruption.
Vulnerable how?
Yeah.
Like cyber attacks, espionage, sabotage.
All the above, yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it. AI development needs huge amounts of data, complex algorithms, and powerful computing infrastructure. And all of that can be targeted by other countries, potentially setting a country's AI program back by years, maybe even decades.
So it's like a constant game of cat and mouse with countries trying to protect their own AI while also trying to mess with everyone else's.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's exhausting.
It is. But that's kind of the point of deterrence. It's about making sure that nobody feels confident enough to make a move that could trigger a huge retaliation.
So that's the idea behind MAM, but like any deterrence strategy, it has its limits, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a fragile balance,
Mhm.
and it needs careful management, and everyone needs to be on the same page about the rules of the game.
So what are the rules? And how do we make sure everyone's playing by them? Okay, so last time we were talking about how AI could become a threat to humanity, right? Like a really serious threat. But you also said that AI could be part of the solution. So which is it? Is it good or bad?
Well, it's both, really. It's a bit of a paradox. But what a lot of your sources are saying is that AI can actually help us to understand and manage complex systems, including AI itself.
Okay, so it's not like a magic bullet or anything. It's more like a tool, a really powerful tool that we can use to get a better grip on things. I'm still a bit skeptical, but what kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, one really interesting area is forecasting AI. This is where you use AI systems trained on massive data sets to predict future events, identify potential risks, and help us make better decisions, when we're not sure what's going to happen.
So like AI fortune telling.
Not quite that simple. But the idea is that AI can analyze trends and patterns in historical data and use that to anticipate things like big economic shifts, political instability, even things like pandemics.
Okay, I can see how that would be useful, especially for governments or businesses or anyone trying to plan for the future. But how does that help us deal with AI itself? How does forecasting help us manage the AI risks?
Okay, so one of your sources, a paper from Oxford, suggests that we could use forecasting AI to keep an eye on how AI is developing around the world, to spot any potential red flags, like signs that a certain AI project might be getting too dangerous.
So it's like an early warning system for AI risks.
Exactly. Instead of waiting for an AI to become a threat, we can use AI to predict when and where that might happen and try to stop it.
So we can get ahead of the curve instead of always reacting after the fact.
Yeah, that's the goal. And the good news is that forecasting AI is actually working pretty well in some areas already.
Yeah.
Did you know there are AI systems that can predict political instability with crazy accuracy? They're often better at it than human experts.
Wow, okay, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So AI is already helping us make better predictions about the future, but predicting things is one thing. Actually doing something about those predictions is another. How do we turn those forecasts into action?
Right, so that's where humans come in. Forecasting AI can give us all these insights and predictions, but it's still up to us, to human decision makers, to figure out what those predictions mean and what to do about them.
Right, because AI might tell us there's a risk of something happening, but it's not going to tell us what to do about it. We still need to use our own judgment, our ethics, and consider all the political stuff too.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why a lot of your sources say we need to develop a strong partnership between AI and human decision makers. It's not about replacing humans, it's about helping them, making them more informed and more effective.
So it's like having an AI advisor, a really smart one that can look at tons of data and see things we might miss. But ultimately, we humans are still the ones in charge.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And that leads us to another cool application of AI-assisted decision making.
Okay, so this is about using AI to help humans make better decisions.
Yeah, especially in situations where the stakes are high, there's a lot of pressure, and things are really uncertain.
Right, because us humans, we tend to get emotional or jump to conclusions or just let our own biases get in the way. AI can help us be more rational and focus on the facts, even when things are crazy.
Right. AI can process information way faster than we can, and it doesn't have the same biases, so it can help us stay objective.
That makes sense. Are there any real world examples of this working?
Oh yeah, there's some really cool examples, like in cybersecurity. There are AI systems that can help security analysts, the people who protect our computer systems. The AI can help them find potential threats, decide which ones are the most urgent, and even take some actions automatically to defend the systems.
So it's like AI is a force multiplier for those security experts. It helps them do their job better and faster.
Exactly. And we can use that same principle in other areas of national security, too. Imagine an AI that could help military commanders decide where to send their troops, or help diplomats figure out how to negotiate a tricky treaty, or even help policymakers understand and respond to a crisis as it's unfolding.
Okay, I'm starting to see how AI could actually be a really powerful force for good, even in national security. But what about this? If we're relying on AI to help us manage the risks of AI, aren't we just creating a whole new set of risks? Like, what if the AI that's supposed to be watching other AIs, what if that one goes rogue?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that your sources talk about, too. It does seem kind of paradoxical, using AI to police AI. And it definitely could have unintended consequences, but it also shows us something really unique about AI as a technology.
Okay, what's that?
Well, AI is different from most other technologies because it can be incredibly destructive, and incredibly beneficial. It all depends on how we use it, how carefully we develop it, and how we control it.
So it's like fire, right? We can use it to cook food and stay warm, but it can also burn down our houses if we're not careful.
Exactly. And just like we've learned to use fire safely, we need to learn to do the same with AI. It's not going to be easy, but it's really important if we want to make sure AI helps humanity instead of hurting it.
Okay, so we've talked about the threats of AI, the need for deterrence and non-proliferation, the importance of staying competitive, and how AI could actually be part of the solution. That's a lot to take in. What are the main things we should remember as we move forward into this whole AI revolution?
I think the biggest takeaway is that AI is a game changer. It has the potential to change our world in huge ways, both good and bad. We can't ignore it or pretend it's not happening. We have to be smart about it and understand the risks and the opportunities.
So no more sticking our heads in the sand and hoping for the best.
Right. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need a solid national security strategy that addresses strategic competition, terrorism, and the potential for us to lose control of AI.
A strategy that helps us not just survive, but actually thrive in a world powered by AI.
Right. It's a big challenge, but it's really important if we want to make sure the future's a good one.
Well said. That's it for our deep dive into superintelligence and national security. It's a complex topic, but hopefully you've learned some valuable things about the challenges and opportunities that AI presents. Thanks for listening.